Today I'm joined by Mark O'Brien, who has played in League Two and beyond, but unfortunately his career had to be stopped due to his heart condition. Mark, I welcome you to the show.
How's it going? You okay?
Yes, not too bad. How are you?
Yeah, no, I'm all good. I'm grand, thanks.
So you've played with a variety of clubs, Motherwell and Loan, Derby County, Luton Town, and of course your beloved Newport County. And we're going to talk through all of them today, but please go ahead and tell us what it was like growing up in your household when you were younger.
Do you know what? Growing up in my household, it was great. I absolutely loved it. It was like, I'm glad of the era that I grew up. Like, it was knock on your friend's door, go out and play on the streets with a football and go down the park with your friends. And it was great. Like, I absolutely loved it. And the upbringing that I did have, like, my family were brilliant. Like, from my mum, my dad, like, we never went without anything. Like, we weren't these people that had a lot of money, but we never went without anything. Me and my brother, who was 2 years older than me, we just had a very happy and good upbringing.
And obviously, I'm presuming it was just in the era where phones were starting to come into play, and this was definitely before social media. So what was that like then? Because I talked to a lot of professionals, and they always tell me that living in the era without social media was probably the better one to be in.
Yeah, look, I definitely agree to that. Like, I always believe it's like when you grew up in the era of no social media, like, you had to make your own fun. You had to use your imagination. You had to like communicate with your friends. You had to talk every day. Like, you had to go and actively knock in for a friend to see if they're like available to come out and play outside. Like, you had to like actually live. And I just believe as social media and stuff has come in, and don't get me wrong, I believe social media has a great platform for a lot of different reasons, and it gives people a lot of different voices to speak out. But I also believe it allows people to hide behind things, and it allows you to kind of suffer with certain things. And it might be at the end of a phone, but I don't think you can ever really come close to, even if you've got someone on the end of a phone or social media, you can never come close to having somebody in your presence and in your company to actually be there for you. So, like, it does have its ups and downs, but I believe growing up without social media was a massive thing for me.
And also, that would have given you more time to play football, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like, and as you say, like, it just gives you more times to create closer friendships. It gives you more times to create more memories. And I just believe it's like you lived your life for yourself. I believe sometimes now on social media, people live their lives for other people, or they see what other people are doing and believe that they're missing out on things. Whereas I think when you didn't have social media, you didn't have to worry about that. You just had to worry about how happy you were going to keep yourself on a day-to-day basis and what your friends are going to get up to on that day. And I think that that's more enjoyable than it does be if you see people on holidays, or you see people who have got to move to different clubs and all these different things that you believe that should be me. Whereas if you're not aware of it, it wouldn't be a concern to you.
And who got you into football then? In your household, was it your parents? Was it your brother and sisters?
It was my brother. He was 2 years older, and obviously my dad as well. My dad used to play years ago, and he never had the opportunity to make it professional. But from what I've heard, he was definitely up there for being a good player in the local area. But my brother, 2 years older than me, played football, and I just really followed in his footsteps. So whatever he done, I wanted to do. And I wasn't really madly into football. Like, I enjoyed doing different things. I enjoyed skateboarding when I was younger and different things. Like, so I was never always fully focused on football until I was 9-10 years of age. Then you couldn't get me away from a football. Like, all I wanted was just football mad. So it was just following in my brother's footsteps was one of the main reasons for picking it up, that I thought, well, if he's doing it, I might as well do it. And I think that was the only reason. But I think as time went on, my love for football grew, and there was just going to be no getting me away from it.
Well, you're one of the youngest players in Derby County's history to represent them at a senior level. But you mentioned about 9 or 10 when you started to get properly into football. By the age of 16, you were already representing at a senior level. So what happened in those few years that really accelerated your footballing ability?
Do you know what? I don't think anything really accelerated my football ability. I just really believe my love for football just grew. My love for football was I just couldn't do anything without football. Like, if I was even in school and I had to do an English exam and write out a story, it would be about me being a footballer. Like, I literally could not do anything other than football. And anytime there was an opportunity to play, I'd go play. And then as time went on, and you start getting more recognised for it, and you start improving, and you start getting better, and you start getting more eyes on you at games coming to watch you. It was almost like you were just enjoying the feel-good factor that football would bring, enjoying playing with your friends. You were enjoying winning games and hopefully winning trophies when you were back in Ireland. And it was having the opportunity to move over to Derby when I was 15. It was kind of like my only mind was set on thinking, I get to do this every single day. Like, from what I got to do twice a day with a team in Ireland and play on a Saturday, I got to do every single day. And I was just thinking, there's no better feeling. And that's all my mind was ever focused on, was the fact of thinking, I get to play every single day. And I think that was something that probably grew me confidence more. Rather than thinking, I need to improve on this and I have to worry about this, it was more a fact of just going, I love football and I get to play this every day. And that is all that matters.
When you were in Dublin, was there a local team that you played for, grassroots? If so, how many were they and what did they help you do?
Yeah, I played for my local team, Cherry Orchard, and I started with them at the age of 8 or 9. And I just think playing with them, I stayed with them for like 10 years of my life. I'd say 10 years, but I stayed with them for about 7 or 8 years until I had to move away. But in that time of playing with them, like, the manager I had was the same manager I had for 8 years. And like that kind of feeling, like, he was a very tough man. He was a very, even at the age of 10, if I was to miss a header or miss a tackle, it was like, get yourself up, you shouldn't be doing this. And if I had blood on my cheek, it would be, come on with a lump of Vaseline. And like, it was just moulding you into competitive football. And I think that's what the local side gave me, was be competitive. And it gave me that competitive edge, like the meaning of winning, the meaning of getting stuck in, winning tackles, winning headers, being a defender. Like, that's what my local team gave me, and it allowed me to be. So what you normally don't get in academies nowadays, which I believe, you don't get that competitive edge because it's about development. Whereas in Ireland, it was about win or lose, and it was about what you're going to do to win and how you're going to win. And like you say, when you have that competitive edge in you, like, that was something that really, like, stood really highly for me and really went well for me when I played away in England.
You mentioned academies, and this can also mean for grassroots level as well in the UK, Ireland and beyond. When you see now that the FA are bringing laws such as under 10s can't header footballs, they can't be trained to header footballs, a lot of coaches like players to have 3 or 4 touches before they score a goal. You know, there's always limitations on what players can and can't do. Is that what affected players now coming through the ranks? And whereas, for example, you and Ireland didn't have that?
Yeah, like, I genuinely do believe that is something that is going to hinder kids in their development. Yes, technically they're going to be unbelievable footballers, and I understand that, and I get football is getting a lot more technical. But I also am believing that you lose your competitive edge. You lose that meaning and that feeling of winning, because all of a sudden, if you don't win a game in an academy, it's okay. Technically, you were brilliant. But no, like, you lose that art of defending, where a clean sheet means everything, where a tackle means everything. Like, a tackle is like a midfielder's best pass. A clean sheet is a striker's goal. Like, them kind of feelings that are getting taken away because, again, you're putting in restrictions. And I understand the meaning and rules behind it is trying to protect kids for the longevity of their careers and different things that they've understood about concussions and everything going forward. But I also believe you do lose the competitive edge of your game, and you lose that kind of fire in your stomach. I just always believe that is something that is missing in a lot of kids. And I believe when they step into a first team environment or a senior environment, I always believe that they're still kind of 2 or 3 steps behind, because they might have the technical ability, they might have the capabilities to handle a football, but can they handle the pressure of winning or losing? Can they handle the pressure of fans chanting at them? Can they handle the pressure of someone is twice their size going to come in for a very tough tackle? Can they handle all of that? I believe that they can't at the time when they come in, but they learn to develop that. But technically, they'll always be a brilliant player. But I'd always believe that the stumbling block now is we don't create them for first team environments. We create very good technical players, but we don't create them for the actual level of senior level, to which I believe when I played in Ireland, I had because I got to be competitive.
And that may have been the reason why he managed to move to a completely different country in England to go ahead and sign for Derby County at the age of 15. Do you remember how this came about? Was it a scout at a game? I mean, was it a contact that maybe your parents knew, which I doubt it would have been? I mean, how on earth did you get a move to Derby County so young?
So in Ireland, when you hit the age of around 14 or 15, English clubs are allowed to take you over on a trial to see how you cope in the academy, to see how you fit in with their system, to see if you enjoy their club. So I went on trial with Manchester City, I went on trial with Liverpool, I went on trial with Blackburn Rovers, and Derby County came in kind of last minute because the scout spoke to my family and said, look, with Mark having interest from these higher up clubs, he probably won't be interested coming near Derby County. So my dad kind of said to him, he was like, look, Mark just wants to play football. Ask him over and see what he thinks. So I got asked to go to Derby, and in that time of going there, honestly, when I first went there, it felt like a home from home. And that feeling for me, especially when you're moving away from Ireland, especially when you're moving away from your family and friends, that feeling of a home from home feeling is something that is probably not spoken of enough. It's about how comfortable you feel, how relaxed you feel, not about the money that they could give me. And I think that for me was like the massive playing part in everything that I done going to Derby. Like everything just felt right. So going there, I didn't have a single hesitation. So when I knew that they wanted to sign me and I knew that it was an opportunity to go play there, I didn't hesitate in wanting to put pen to paper for Derby.
You mentioned money, and of course a 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old shouldn't be focusing on money because, as you were, you need to focus on football at that age. But social media again plays a part in that because they're seeing players like, is it Somerville or the American kid who's 15 years old, 14 actually, who's now gone and got a contract at Manchester City. He's now going to be set for life if he continues for the next 5 or 6 years, purely because of social media and sponsorships, etc. So social media, again, is killing that side of football, right?
Yeah, definitely, because it gives people a false expectation of what football really is. And that's what I mean, is that you set your expectation of thinking, I'm going to get that one deal that's going to sort me out for the rest of my life. And I just believe that is like a false advertisement of football. Like it takes away the love and meaning of football, that why are you actually in the game? Why did you start it when you were 6 years of age? You started it because you loved it and you enjoyed it. You didn't start it because one day you thought, I'm going to earn millions. And I think when you take that aspect away and all people see is the contract you can get and the cars you can get and the money you can get, I think that's what everybody's perception is. But realistically, I think having a career in football, no matter what the level is a successful life, because people all focus on Premier League and think if you don't play in the Premier League, well, then what's the point of playing football? But I have come across, and I've been part of it, where I've never played Premier League, but I got to play at very, very good standards. But then also I had to drop down the leagues and I played in the conference. I played in League Two. Like I've done these things to where, but realistically, all I did was play football and I was happy. I didn't care about the money. I didn't care about what was going on in my life. All I cared about was I moved away from Ireland to play football. Yeah, if I want to be selfish and say, yeah, I would have loved to play the Premier League. I would have loved to sign a 5-year deal and earn millions a week and all these different things. But that still wouldn't have changed my feeling towards, I still only want to play football. So I don't care where it is or what I'm doing. If I have the opportunity and someone gives me that opportunity to play football, well, then that's what matters more. And if you do well at that and you appreciate that, the money will come in anyway, because your enjoyment will bring out your best football.
And you managed to get a senior debut at the age of 16 for Derby County. But Derby County would have signed you on this deal then. So was it over more than a trial now? Was it a professional contract? What happened within that time frame?
When I signed for Derby, I signed a 3-year contract. It was a 2-year scholarship with a 1-year professional contract. And in the time, it was kind of like a pre-contract that I first signed when I signed at 15, because I wasn't able to fully register for Derby until I was 16. So when I moved away, I was training every day. I was training with the academy side every day. But then I would play for the under-16s on a Saturday because I wasn't allowed to play for Derby's youth team. And then when I turned 16 in that November, I was allowed to play for the youth team, which then meant week after week, I was able to kind of play with lads who were 2-3 years older than me. But I absolutely loved it.
And you managed to get 26 minutes in your debut game against Watford, which you did lose 3-1. But what was that like in the call-up? Because you mentioned you just wanted to play football, and there's been great insights throughout the years with Ben Foster starting a YouTube channel and travelling up and down the country with your club, getting your hotels paid for you, etc. What was that like to step into a professional footballer's shoes at the age of 16?
Do you know what? It was something that at the time when I got told, like I couldn't be any more nervous. Like when I got told, it was the week leading up to the game against Watford. The assistant manager came up to the youth team changing room and knocked on the door and said, "Right, OB, you're with us today." And I kind of like, you feel that feeling of like the blood just rushing away from your face and you just feel like white as a ghost and you're just thinking, uh-oh. And you get that sick feeling in your stomach. But honestly, I went down for the first day, trained really well, because I always have said it that football has been like an alter ego for me. It was like, I still might have only been 16, so off the field, I'm a 16-year-old. I'm somebody who, unless spoken to, will speak. If you ask me a question, yeah, I'll talk, but I'll sit there quietly and I'll just watch people walk past. And like, I wasn't that most confident of 16-year-olds, but put me on a football pitch and I'm calling, I'm telling people what to do, I'm having a go at somebody else, I'm making tackles, and I'm just doing what I love. And I think that is what shone through for me. And all that week, I was loving every single minute of training with the first team. And everybody afterwards, like coming over, patting me on the back, saying, well done today, you trained really well. And these are all first team lads that, again, you kind of, you take confidence from it. Like you walk around like you're 10 foot tall, like your chest is out and you're thinking, this is brilliant. Like I just had Robbie Savage with his arm around me saying, well done. Like these things were just so surreal to me. But then when I got told I'll be travelling to Watford on the Saturday, again, more nerves kicked in. Everything just kind of felt so strange. And I remember I was sitting on the table going to the game and I'm sitting across from Rob Holtz and people like that. And I'm just sitting there really quiet. Like, I don't know what to say or how to speak. I'm making teas on the bus and I'm just helping about where I can. And that was literally it. And then when I got to the stadium, you're in there, you're getting changed, you go out and warm up, and you're kind of just standing there in a bit of a surreal feeling, thinking, I'm playing here today. Like, I'm involved with this today. And again, I didn't start the game, but getting to be there and be involved and have the opportunity to, I could come on at any moment here. Like, don't get me wrong, I was nervous, but I was excited. But the moment when he turned around and told me, Mark, you're going on, go get warm. Like, I didn't know what go get warm meant. Like, I just jogged up and down the sideline. I think I stretched my hamstring once and I jogged back down. And I remember going on, and Nigel Clough, the words he said to me was, he goes, Mark, kick it and head it, be a defender. All the best. And that was it. So I went on, and again, like I already said, the alter ego kicked in, where I could have been playing for Cherry Orchard back at home at the age of 15, or I could have been playing at Watford in front of 23,000 people. But I was there to win headers. I had the competitive edge to make a tackle. I had the awareness to talk to people a little bit more. And football really brought out a side of me that allowed me to kind of grow. Football allowed me to grow. And as I said, that moment of coming on at what first was so nerve-wracking, but once I got into it, it was like I was playing for Cherry Orchard again.
And it's as simple as that, because all you've got to do is just hide away from the fact that you're playing in front of 25,000 people. Is that right? I mean, I spoke to someone who was on the bench against Fenerbahce. He plays for NK Mariupol. And they were playing a Europa League qualifier. And he just said that when you're on the pitch, everything around just zones out. So you're just focused on winning and just focused on the pitch. Is that what happened?
Yeah, 100%. And it is literally that. It was like, once I went onto the pitch, it was like the me that would play in the local park the year before, the summer before that, playing in the local park, to then playing in front of 23,000 people. I think the only reason why things either work out or they don't is because you take in the factors of, oh, I'm in a big stadium, oh, there's loads of fans, and oh, there's loads of eyes on me. And it's once you can kind of forget about that and just focus on, I'm getting asked to do what I've done for the last 10 years of my life. I've been a defender. I've tackled people. I've won headers. Now all of a sudden I'm getting asked to do it again. And that was it. And once I ended up going onto a field and doing that at Watford, as I said, the feeling coming off that pitch was kind of like, this is what I want. Like being in a stadium playing in front of thousands of people actually gave me that adrenaline rush where I thought, this is exactly what I want. Like, it didn't make me think I can't do this. It made me feel on top of the world.
Do you remember what Vicarage Road was like? Obviously, Watford Stadium. Obviously, I've got a Watford shirt behind me. I just wanted to know what it was like to play in that sort of atmosphere at Vicarage Road.
Like, don't get me wrong, it was tough. It was we were 3-0 down when I came off the bench, so it was kind of like a party atmosphere. Like, everybody, you can hear you could hear the songs and the celebrations. But it was, I remember, it's like you have to go down into the stadium, and it's like you have the two wide sides, the back of the goal, and then the Derby fans were in the opposite end in the corner. And it was just something where, like, once I went onto the field, I went on centre back with Rob Hulse, who was a striker, and I just remember like just being there and taking it in and just thinking, yeah, I love this. Like, if this is what the stadiums are and this is what the feeling is every single week, like, I don't want it to end. And Vicarage Road was something where I remember, like, obviously my debut I lost 3-1, but in the season that I really broke through and start playing week in, week out, we went back to Vicarage Road and we won 1-0. And that was something where it was kind of like that. I haven't played there since my debut. Now that I've played there and now that I'm playing a little bit more regular and I'm 2 years older, now all of a sudden I get a win. So it's kind of always been a nice little special place for me.
So when you were at the age of 16, you had to go for a routine heart screening, which is what all footballers have to do. So please tell us the story, because it's one that resonates with me as well. I believe my mum has this as well. So could you go ahead and tell us what the whole process was about and how it came along?
Yeah, so I came back for pre-season after making my debut, and in that pre-season, obviously training is very difficult, and you have to get your routine heart scans. And I was sitting in the physio room, and the heart screening doctor comes in. Everybody gets screened, but in the time I got screened, I thought it was going to be the same as nearly everybody else. You get screened, you get told you're okay, you get up and walk out and get on with your life. Mine was, I got screened, I got told to wait there. The physio came in, they shut the door behind them, and the doctor came over and said, look, we found a small abnormality in your heart. We found that your aortic valve is leaking ever so slightly, but it's something where we can monitor it. We're just going to keep an eye on it. And again, being 16, all I asked was, can I still play football? And they said, yeah, look, you can still play football. There's people who can live with this on a daily basis and don't even know they have it. But it is something where we will have to monitor it with you being in professional football. And I was like, right, that's no problem. But what we want to do is we want to send you for a scan. We want to send you for an MRI to make sure, to see how the heart is functioning, to see how everything is functioning with this valve. I was like, right, that's no problem. Because they asked me, do you have lightheadedness? Do you have dizziness? Do you have fatigue? Do you have this? And I didn't have a single symptom. So I went and kept on training. And in training, my heart rate, when we wear the heart rate belts, what kind of put 2 and 2 together to maybe fast forward the MRI scan was my heart rate, my max heart rate was going to like 226 or 227. And my average heart rate was 203. So my heart rate was just constantly high and would never come down in any rest period. But again, I didn't know what any of that meant. I just thought I was training hard, and they thought I was training hard. But because of this scan, they put 2 and 2 together and said, look, we'll send this off to a specialist. We'll get the MRI and we'll move it forward. So then I ended up having the MRI scan, and I got told after it, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being leaking really badly and 1 not really much, your valve is leaking a 7 or an 8. And in that time, then that's when alarm bells start ringing to think something isn't quite right here. So then they sent those results off to another specialist. I go back to Derby and I'm doing like kind of slow, moderate training. I'm not really doing the intense stuff. And then in that time, I go and see another specialist, and then they explain, right, Mark, look, you probably won't need an operation for another 20 or 30 years. But in that 20 or 30 years, like, look, football will be long gone. You can still play. And I just thought, great. Once I can still hear that football is still able to be played, I wasn't really worried about anything. And then we went to see another specialist after that. And when the other specialist seen it, he said, right, Mark, you won't need another operation for another 20 years. So I realised that at the beginning I got told 60 years, then I went to 20 or 30 years, now we're down to 10 or 20 years. But then they said, okay, but we're going to send it to a surgeon. And in that time of sending it to a surgeon, he'll give his professional opinion on it just to see what he thinks. So we ended up going to the hospital where the surgeon is. It was the Derby physio, my mum, my dad, and me sitting in this office. And the doctor walked in, the surgeon walked in, went to his desk, had this model heart in his hand, and he said, look, he said, Mark, your heart is 3 times the size of what it should be for someone of your age. And if you don't get this operation done this year, you're going to die. And it was there and then that it was kind of like a, you can't be speaking to me moment. Like, this cannot be happening to me, because I went from getting told it's not going to be for another 20, 30, 40, 50 years to then, if I don't have it done within a year, I'm going to die. And that feeling in itself was really tough to take. But at the same time, I didn't really take it in. I think when I was 16, all I cared about was football because of my debut the season before. That all I asked him was, can I still play football? And I remember he looked at me and he just said, look, Mark, you'll be lucky to play down the park with your friends, let alone play professionally after this. And he said, you've been quite lucky to play professionally to this point with the way that your valve is at the moment. And that for me was kind of more heartbreaking than hearing that I needed open heart surgery. That's when I actually start feeling disappointed about everything, because I always thought football can never get taken away from me. And at this moment, it felt as though it's getting taken away. And when the surgeon said that to me, I remember the question got asked about what's the procedures. And he went through the procedures of going, you can get a metallic valve, which means you'll be on a blood thinner for the rest of your life, which means, look, you'll end up having to retire because you can't play professional sport on a blood thinner. The second operation was what he called it, I think they call it a Ross operation, where they swap the aortic valve with the lung valve around because they're still the same tissues. But then years down the line, you have another operation for the lung valve. And then he said, you can either have a pigskin valve, you can have it replaced with a pigskin valve, a metallic valve, or another valve. And I said, okay. And he said, and I said to him, which one will probably be the best for an opportunity of playing? And he said, the pigskin valve, he said, could give you that potential opportunity of playing again. But he said, to get back to a professional standard, he said, you probably won't ever do that again. But to play again, you probably, the pigskin valve. And I said, right, I'll go for that. And there wasn't even a second guess, a second chance, a second choice and anything. Like, I just said, yeah, I want that one. Because at 16, I made the promise to myself saying I was having one operation for football, successful or not successful. And when that valve, or if that valve ever failed, the next operation was going to be for my life. So when they spoke about the pigskin valve, they said it would probably be a year to a maximum of 5 years that you will have it. He said, but there's not a guarantee that you'll even get to a year. He said it's something where the valve, the pigskin valve, has to take to your body. And if it takes to your body, great. But if it doesn't take to your body and starts leaking again, you come back in and go for the same procedure. So in my mind, I was just thinking, well, I want to play football, so I want to go for a pigskin valve. So I ended up having the operation. And after having the operation, I had it in October of 2009, I think it was. And I ended up getting back playing that same season in 2010. I got back playing around March, April time. My first game back was Manchester United in the under-18s. But in that time of 7 or 8 months, it was like I didn't have a single doubt in my mind I'd never play again. Now, there was certain times where it was because of the people I had around me that I never doubted it. But if I was going to be totally honest with myself, like, there was times where I thought, I'm probably never going to reach this standard again. Because I'd be running alongside some of the lads and I'd start thinking to myself, do you know what? I'm not as fit as these. But the turning point was when I had to go back and do a fitness test for the hospital. I was sitting on the treadmill, and they said, "Okay, Mark, turn it on. Let's get walking." And then I'd walk, and I kept walking. They go, "Right, turn it up a little bit more. Keep walking." And it was in that time they were saying, "Mark, you're really fit," which then all of a sudden made me realise things are going in the right direction. Everything is going brilliant. This is the best feeling ever. So then that little small boost, as well as everybody who I had around me, from my family to Derby as a club, to Nigel Clough as a manager, to the physios, like everybody who I had around me, all stayed positive and never allowed me to think that I was never going to play again. And once I ended up getting back playing again, like, honestly, I never felt as happy before. But it gave me a new love for football that I thought I had all the love in the world for football. But when somebody was sitting there telling me I'd probably never play again, that I probably won't ever get to a professional standard again, to then actually get back playing, made me look at football so differently, to say, I don't care where I am, what I do, or how I do it. If I'm playing football, I'm happy. And I think that is something, was the starting point for so many ups and downs I had along my career, that allowed me to keep myself going.
The following season, the 2010-2011 season, you only played 3 minutes of senior level at Derby County, and that was obviously because of the heart condition and you were just getting back into football. And you mentioned a few minutes ago about your breakthrough season. So we can talk about that now. In the 2011-2012 season with Derby County, you played 14 games in a row, 4 clean sheets, and played 90 minutes 12 out of those 14 times. What was that like then? I know you were getting a bit emotional, and I'm sure it was a really emotional thing for your family, to go through such concern about you, to then going ahead and making an absolute belter of a season with Derby County. Talk to us about that whole recovery period.
The whole recovery period, like, it just felt like standard procedure. Like, I didn't think about me open heart surgery, because all I had was football distracting me, and football was my massive distraction for everything. So, like, even in the time of going through the recovery, like, once I was gearing it towards, I'm getting back to play football, like, it didn't bother me. And I know it sounds strange, but I think being so young at the time, like, I didn't have the opportunity, or I didn't have the awareness to sit and think about what I've just gone through. All I just thought was, I've just had an operation to go play football. Let's just get on with it. And getting the opportunity to get myself back into a standard of playing, allowing me then to go back and play football, allowing me to then, like, be part of Derby's first team year after year. Like, and I still had to go back and play some reserve games. I was still playing youth team games. I was still doing loads of different things to keep building fitness when I wasn't playing first team. But majority of the time, I was a first team member. I was training first team. I was doing loads of different things. But, like, that recovery period, like, was more of a learning curve to kind of be like, I'm just having to find my feet again in football. And again, this is where we say I was lucky to have the manager that I did in Nigel Clough, because he gave me every last opportunity. Because when I made my debut, I signed a new 3-year professional deal, 3.5 years. And that was the something to give me the opportunity to get back playing. And when I broke through into that season, like, properly, it was something where I had one of the best pre-seasons ever. I was at the back of every last run that we done, but I played every minute of every pre-season game. Like, I played all the minutes that I needed to play. I played in every single game that I needed to play in. So the manager kind of, if you want to say, prepared me for those years after the open heart surgery, to then say, he's ready now. And that readiness was something where, before, he probably hesitated putting me into a game, and I'd get a couple of minutes here and there off the bench in the last 5 minutes of this game. Whereas this time, he didn't have a single hesitation, because we played Birmingham at home on the opening day of the season. And Russell Anderson got injured in the first 30 minutes with his hamstring. And straight away, you normally look at it and go, you would normally put somebody else on, experienced, and then the 18-year-old will wait around. But he had that much confidence in me. He turned around and said, "OB, you're going on." And then it was that moment that we ended up winning the game. And then you just went from game to game to game to game. And I actually broke through, and I was thinking, this is the season I've been wanting. This is what I've been after. Like, this is exactly what I want to be doing. And to be honest, I like Derby was always like a second home to me, and still is. Like I would still look out for Derby for what they've done for me. But that season in itself, making that impact, and I was still only 18 years of age. Like I look back now and realise how much of an achievement it was, rather than at the time you kind of just take it as in to say, yeah, I'm living my life, this is what I want. But you don't really understand until you look back to say, as an 18-year-old to be playing at centre-back in the Championship is something that is a really big achievement.
There was another roadblock in the way as you got a cruciate ligament tear and you missed the last 22 games of that season. How did that come about? Because 22 games, of course, is half a season. And you've managed to go a lot of games in a row with playing, 90 minutes there, 90 minutes there, a lot of faith been put into you. And then you got this injury. I mean, what a major blow it was for you and your family.
Yeah, because we were playing West Ham away. And in that game, our club captain, Sean Barker, got himself back fit. And I remember Nigel Clough pulled me to the side and he was saying, look, the club captain's back fit now. You've played so many games at such a young age. I bet you didn't expect to play this many games. And it was kind of just that type thing. And when the game finished, I came on for the last 30 minutes in that game. And when the game finished, it kind of, to an extent, lit a little fire in my stomach to kind of be like, I want to get back playing again. Like, so I'm going to have to train harder. I'm going to have to do things better. I'm going to have to keep on going. So, like, I was still loving the fact, but I was starting to get that little slight disappointment in myself and go, why am I not playing? I want to be playing. So, I think leading up to the Christmas period, that might have been, we played Leeds United on a Saturday, and I came on for about 20, 30 minutes, and I think we won the game 3-0 or 3-1. And when you only play like 30 minutes or 35 minutes, you have to then train the next day. So in that next day of training, I remember Nigel Clough told me how good my training has been, that he's going to be putting me back into the starting team. So that for me was like the start of a week to think, right, I'm going to be actually back in the team now. Like I've worked hard to get back. So we were in training and we were doing a passing drill, and then we went into a little bit of a possession game, like 5 against 5. And I remember I went to press somebody and close them down. And as he passed it, I went to push off my right leg. And when I went to push, my knee slipped. And all of a sudden, I just heard a pop. And my knee was just complete agony. And there was so much pain. And then the physio came out and carried me into the physio room. And then the pain went. And I thought, maybe I've just exaggerated this. Maybe this is something that isn't as bad as what I made it out. But then I got assessed, and the physio came in, and I asked, like, I hadn't really been injured before. And I asked him, I said, how long is it? I said, like, is it serious? Is it bad? Am I out for a couple of weeks, or what is it? And he said, a couple of weeks. He said, your season's done. And I looked at him, I was kind of like, what do you mean? He said, you've done your cruciate ligament and your season's done. So when I found that out, the manager come in, kind of consoled me and said, like, he's sorry for it to happen and different things. And that in itself, I think, was more heartbreaking than the open heart surgery, because not only after me open heart surgery did I get told it might take a year to a maximum of 5 years of playing football. I also had to have a heart scan every single season to see if I was allowed to play the next season, to see if the valve was okay. So I still wasn't even guaranteed to play every single season of those 5 years that maybe I was going to get. So that in itself, having the cruciate ligament really, really got me down, because in that time I was thinking all I want to do is play. And this heart is something that I don't know if this is going to last like till next year. Like, I don't know how long it's going to be. And now I've got an injury that is not allowing me to play. And because it's not my heart and I can't control it, why does this always have to happen to me? And I could feel that I was getting really frustrated. But also, again, when I spoke about the open heart surgery, it's what led me to go, well, if I can get back from open heart surgery, I can get back from this. If open heart surgery can't stop me, a cruciate ligament won't. Because everybody who knows cruciate ligaments, it's always known as an almost career-ending injury. It's something that is very, very bad for any sort of athlete, because it's something that's in a very crucial area. And that, to me, was something where I didn't think twice of it. I just thought, well, if I can get back from this, I can get back from anything. And that's why I always say I appreciate probably having the open heart surgery at 16, because certain things that I've faced along the way in my career just had a resilience in me to think, well, I can always dip back into feeling like that and then go, well, because I've already got back from this, I can do this. And because I've already done this, I can definitely do this. And I just believe that the open heart surgery was the start of all of that.
You ended up going to Motherwell on a 6-month loan from Derby County in the 2014-15 season. They were fighting relegation throughout the whole campaign, and your debut was a 1-0 loss to St Johnstone, but the loan did get extended. You lost your spot to Steve McManus and Lewis Lang, and the cup tie versus Hamilton, you got a controversial red card after a delay in refereeing, and you're smiling about that. So go ahead and tell us about that decision.
Well, I'll never forget that red card, because it's probably one of the most red cards that I will always dispute and say, like, there's not many red cards I can dispute in my career that when I've had them, I've always kind of thought, yeah, potentially. But this one is a red card that I don't understand that at all, because it was coming near to the end of the first half of the game, and the striker got a ball played to his feet. And as the striker got the ball to his feet, he went to turn on the outside with his right foot. And I kind of read it at the same time, but made a tackle from behind, but won the ball on the side as well as going through the back of him, to what any defender would be delighted with a tackle like that. And the referee blew the whistle for half time. We all went into the changing rooms. And when we were all in the changing rooms, like, there was a knock on the changing room door. And that knock in the changing room door, the referee was standing there, and Stuart McCall, the manager, goes, "Can we help you?" And he goes, "We need to see your number 15. So I was like, right. So I ended up walking into the referee's room, and the referee was standing there with me and Stuart McCall, and he issued me a yellow card. And I was like, "What was that for?" He was like, "It was for the tackle just before the end of the half." I said, "I won the ball." He said, yeah, but we have to give you the yellow card inside, because it would have caused a lot of disruption out on the pitch. I said, "But I didn't." I said, "I won the ball." No. Decision's done. So we then kicked back off second half. We got to the second half of extra time. And in the second half of extra time, they're breaking on a counter-attack, and their players running at me. And if you're running directly at me and then you touch a ball that way, I read him touching it that way. So I went across him like that and just kind of got my arm in the way, took the ball. And because he went over, referee comes sprinting over to me, second yellow card. He sent off. And I said, "Ref, what was that for?" And he said, "You pushed him." I said, "Ref, is this how football is going now?" I said, "I'm not allowed to actually make contact with people." So I think if anybody ever wants to watch it, I think you'd actually understand, because that red card is probably something where I was thinking, if there's a red card that I've never deserved, it would have been one of them. And I think it was only like my second game there in the Scottish Cup, and I'm thinking it's not really looking like a really good impression if you're getting sent off in your second game on a loan move. But I think everybody at the time could see in the stadium, as well as the manager, to say, look, it was the softest red card that probably anyone has ever seen.
You ended up going back to Derby, but you got released and you ended up going to Luton Town. In that period between the two clubs, how did you get released from Derby County? Was your contract expired after 3 years?
Yeah, so my contract was coming to an end, which is the reason I was up at Motherwell trying to look for a new contract, because I had a discussion with Steve McLaren before I left, and it was about, I need to find a new path, and I've had enough time at Derby with a couple of ups and downs along the way. Maybe I need to start finding and broaden my horizon to newer clubs. And so my kind of journey was to go to Motherwell and try and earn myself a contract, try and be in the shop window, and it was all so new to me, because I never left Derby. I never thought I'd ever leave Derby at the time. Like, Derby was my second home. But I think for all of those different things that were going on at the time, I think being up at Motherwell really opened my eyes to, like, football is the same everywhere. Because I think when you're so in a bubble with one club, you just think that this club is the only club that does this in this way, and this is the perfect way, and this is the best way. whereas you don't experience anywhere else. Whereas getting to experience Motherwell and the people that I met along the way and some really good friends up there, like, it really opened my eyes, and it showed me that, like, there are more opportunities out there, that there are loads of different teams that have different opinions, that there's always an opportunity there for you to be able to get a contract. And unfortunately at Motherwell it didn't quite work. But in that time that it didn't work, it was more of the fact of I didn't really have anywhere to go after it. And that's where the kind of worry came in, because I flew back to Ireland. I had an agent at the time who was phoning around clubs, seeing if I can get a trial somewhere. And this was the first unknown kind of time or uncertainty that I've ever had, that I don't have a club here. What am I going to do? Because everything, like you say, was so easy at Derby. Year after year, I had a year. And then I had another 2-year contract where I had a 3-year deal here. And you know where you are for the next 3-4 years. Whereas this time I was like, well, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. And then it was only when Luton got in touch and said they noticed me in a game when I played for Motherwell, that they enjoyed and liked what they saw, and they wanted to take me on a trial. And I ended up flying to Portugal with Luton for 10 days. Didn't know a single player. Flew out last minute. And in that time of after flying out, I trained there for 10 days, double session every day, scored a header in the pre-season friendly, and they signed me on a 2-year contract straight after. So that in itself was kind of a unknown, uncharted territory type thing. But at the same time, it was brilliant, because if I didn't have that experience of Motherwell, meeting new people and kind of being a little bit more outgoing and a little bit more open-minded, I think I would have found it a lot more daunting flying away to Luton or flying away to Portugal with Luton, because I wouldn't have been none the wiser, and I wouldn't have been open-minded to flying away somewhere else without actual confirmation of a deal there and then.
We've got so much to get through, but I just wanted to ask, because obviously you did spend a few months up in Scotland. What is it like over there? Because everyone knows the funding up in Scottish football is nowhere near as great as probably what the Championship is. But we also see the facilities of Rangers and Celtic, and we admire them. You know, they're all right. But then we go down to the next few clubs, Motherwell, St Johnstone, these kind of teams, and we see the facilities aren't that great. Games are being called off for waterlogged pitches. What is the Scottish Premiership actually like for a player?
Do you know what? I think it's brilliant. Like, I genuinely do believe it's brilliant, because it is a very, very good standard. I think people get the wrong perception of it, because all you see on Sky Sports is Celtic and Rangers. If Celtic are playing against Motherwell, if Rangers are playing against somebody, if Celtic are playing against St Johnstone, like, that's the only time you get to really see these teams, because they don't get their own really time on air as much as what you would with Celtic and Rangers, which is understandable. But you go up there and you realise that you've got your Hibernians, you've got St Mirren's, you've got Hearts, you've got Aberdeen, you've got all these teams that are really, really good teams, like, that are solid teams. Motherwell even I'll put in that same bracket. Like, they are all really good SPL teams, but obviously they get outshined by Celtic and Rangers, and that is something that, unfortunately, that is what people consider it. But if I had to put a kind of label on what Scottish League is like, it would be if you had League 2, League 1, Championship, and maybe the Prem. But if you had all of them leagues mixed into one. So, like, some weeks, like, and this is the only way that I've ever described it when I was on loan there. Like, we played Ross County on 1 week. And Ross County on 1 week, you'd have about 2,000 fans there, probably 1,500 fans, 2,000 fans. And then next week at a 12:30 kickoff, we're playing at Celtic Park in front of 60,000. So it's kind of like the difference of the scale is incredible. But the standard is still a very good standard. It's still like a standard where you can make a very comfortable living in Scottish football. And I just believe, because of the scale of fan base and because of the scale of money compared to what your Celtic and Rangers and different teams are, it makes everything else not seem as great. But the facilities that the likes of Motherwell have, the facilities that Aberdeen do have, the facilities that Hibs do have, are all still amazing facilities. Because I've been then at other clubs in the conference when I went to Southport on loan, where the facilities are probably non-existent, and they do the best with what they have. So it's kind of like you can only ever do the best with what you've got. But I think because people are so focused on only having Celtic and Rangers, there's only two teams that ever win the league. But there are a lot of very good teams and unbelievable players in the SPL that get overlooked just due to the fact of the magnitude of what the Celtic and Rangers teams bring to that league.
So obviously you're with Luton and you played 9 games all season in League 2. And we can focus on that League 2 because obviously they were in the Premier League last season. So what was that like then? Because you were at one end of the spectrum with Luton Town, and obviously they've gone really far since then. What was it like to see an upbringing? Was it when you were the player at that time? Did you understand that there could be Premier League contention within the next 5 or 6 years?
They had ideas of it. They had plans of it. They had like a vision of it. But everybody's got that vision. So like if no matter what club you go for, you're not going to have a club that doesn't have a vision to want to be in higher leagues. And I think they had a vision and they were putting things in place to fulfill that. And at the time I was there, it was kind of a massive turnaround in players. I think at the beginning when I first signed, and then halfway through I was there was another massive turnaround in players because Nathan Jones as a manager come into the building, and that was another massive turnaround. So like you could see that they were trying to implement things, and you could see that there was a focus on where they wanted to be and where they wanted to go. But like realistically, I always looked at it and thought maybe it might be a bit of a push. Like the fans always believe that they're a Premier League club. Like they've always got a great fan base and they've always got great support, and they've always got like a fan base that are willing to like go through thick and thin with them to like give them that support. But I think you also, when you speak about facilities, I think the facilities that I was in at the time in League 2, we were in porta cabins, which had changing rooms, they had a dining room, they had like a little small games room, and they had offices. And then they had another porta cabin of a gym. And I look at that and go, well, then their facilities, they're a starting place. They're a starting block. They're amazing. So you look at it then and go, right, the vision was to go, we're going to get a training ground, we're going to do this, and then we're going to do that. And you're just thinking, right, but you have to get what's in the building right first, as the team-wise, manager-wise, player-wise, and then you can then evolve into that. So I believe in the period that I was there, they were evolving into that by getting what was right in the building first to then go outwards. Because, again, I think that's where it all starts. And I think you could see that they were hungry for that vision. But also on the flip side of that, I think it's one of those things that you just have to kind of almost hope just as much as have that vision and have that drive, because we can all have the vision, but if you don't get that little bit of luck and that little bit of hope along the way, well then I don't think I didn't believe at the time that it was going to be as quick as it was. But for some of the people that have been in that building, like, I'm more than happy for them.
With Luton Town and the previous clubs that you've played for, and this could happen in League 2, League 1, doesn't matter where it can be, players do get bought on with 1 minute to go, 2 minutes to go, 3 minutes to go, maximum 5 minutes to go. And you always wonder, what's the point of bringing on this really creative player with 1 minute to go? They're not going to affect the game. As a player who has been brought on in those kind of situations, what do you feel like? Do you feel like you're the letdown, or do you feel like the manager is going crazy?
Do you know what? I had a certain role that I used to come on for Derby, where if it was the last 5 minutes of a game and you have your back line and we're getting put under pressure, you sit in front of the back line and anything that comes your way, you head it. So it gives the back line a bit of a breathing space. I'll be the battler. I'll be the one to try and throw me head in. Use just, if I miss the header, you're in a good position, because the last thing you want is your centre-half stepping out of position, losing a header, which leaves a gap. So I'm the one that lets them stay in their slots and their positions, that I'll just be the one to try and interrupt and win some things in front of them. So, like, I always believed, and for myself, I always believed there was an importance to what I done. Like, and it might have been for 5 minutes, but I was still important for those 5 minutes, because if I did win a header that could have prevented a goal, well, then I helped. Because I remember there was a time where I played Crystal Palace away, and it was just on the Christmas time. I think we were 1-1 away at Crystal Palace, and I came on in the last 5 minutes of the game, and all I got to do was I did one thing and one thing only, and they celebrated me like I just won the game for them. Because I came on, there was a long throw in on the right-hand side. I stood on the 6-yard box. Ball came in. I headed it completely as far as I could out of the 18-yard box. Referee blew the whistle, and I had everybody pat me on the back and hug me and say, do you know what, because of that header. Now, I only played 3 minutes, 5 minutes max. But in that one action, you got made feel as though you just won them the game. So, like, there is always a method to the madness behind it. What people see from the outside of thinking, well, what's the point in bringing O'Brien on for 5 minutes? We could have done with him for 15 minutes of defending all these balls. But realistically, it's the same as going, well, you could have brought that attacker on with 20 minutes to go. Well, look, he might only be effective for 5 minutes in that 20 minutes. So why not let him go? We want 5 minutes of just give it everything. Sprint everywhere, attack the minute you get it. And it's the same bringing on a really tall striker for the last 5 minutes of the game. What are you going to do? We're just going to kick it long. Now, is that bad? No, because if you had him on for 20 minutes, he probably wouldn't be as effective than he would in that 5. So there is always like reasoning behind it. But if the player is more on board with the fact of going, I'm not being disappointed, I'm actually seeing that I'm important and I will be needed. So when I am needed, even if it is for those 5 minutes, I'm going to make the best of them. Because then you don't want to then come on and not be ready and then you be the cause and then you'll never get looked at again. So sometimes it is about more your mentality in that situation than it is the actual reason for why you're coming on.
You did do 2 loans at Southport. You played 12 games in the first season in the 15-16 campaign. You played the last few games, the majority of them all being 90 minutes. However, you were relegated. And does this game sum up your season? So it was Southport 3, Welling 3. Do you remember that game?
I do remember it very well.
Well, go ahead and talk to us about that, because you got 1 goal and 1 assist, but obviously it didn't finish the way that you would have liked.
Yeah, no, it was something that was a tough game. I think we went 2-3-0 up in the game, and it was an amazing game. And I scored my first ever goal, and I thought, this is brilliant. I said, like, we're 3-0 up, like let's calm it down. And I don't know, it was like just something like a revival. It was like a 5-10 minutes of madness where Welling get 1 goal, and then it's like, right, you pick the ball up, they pick the ball up, they put it back on the centre circle, and right, we're ready to go again. And you see it happen in so many games. It's like the momentum was just with them. Wherever they played forward, whatever they done, then they clip another ball forward, someone else falls over, it goes in again. You're thinking, oh no, this can't be happening. It goes 3-2. And when it finished 3-3, it was kind of, you walk away from that game thinking, that just feels like a loss. Like, that's just taking the shine away from me scoring my first ever goal. Like, I can't believe that's just happened. Like, it didn't feel as though, right, we just got a point. Like, it actually felt as though we lost the game. And those type of games are probably so far and few between, but so easily they happen. And you see it happen in the Premier League all the time. You see it happen in so many games that someone can be comfortably 3-0 up, 4-0 up, and before you know it, it comes back 4-3, and then there's 10 minutes to go as it's 4-3, and you're thinking, how did he get to this part? But it's all just literally, it was one of those games that's exactly what happened. They just got the momentum. We ended up just not dealing with it at the right times, and we paid the price for it. But again, it is a game that I remember, because it was only after that game, and this is why the bad side of social media came out. Because in that time, I had like a lot of Luton fans who obviously they didn't really get to see a lot of me at Luton. But I had a lot of Luton fans at the time that started tweeting me. And now I'm on loan from Luton. I'm one of their players. But I start getting loads of tweets off Luton fans telling me how terrible I am. And that's what happens when you have Mark O'Brien playing your team. You're just going to keep conceding goals. Like, and I was really already down about the game itself. I'm living in a hotel by myself, and all I have to do after the game is read tweets from a team that I'm not even playing for at the time, and giving me abuse about how bad I am and I should just leave football and go back to Ireland. Like, that was the bad side of social media that I had to learn quickly. I had to understand that not everything is a pat on the back, because even at this point, I'm still only 23, 24 years of age. Like, I'm still a young player. Like, yeah, I've had a bit of experience elsewhere, but I'm still a young player. So it was difficult to deal with at the time. But again, you kind of have to learn from what you're living with.
The second season at Southport, you played 5 games in the National League, and again, you got relegated. There wasn't too much about this season, but back-to-back relegations. What was it like to get relegated for the first time, but then to go back there with probably the expectations of challenging back to go back up, to then get relegated for the second time?
Do you know what? I think the second time that I went back was more out of I just wanted to play games. Like, it was more out of the fact of just thinking, I want to play games. I want to end up playing as many games as I can possible. Because I think in that fourth season, we ended up staying out of relegation. I think in that fourth season that I went to Southport. It was only the following season that I went back was the opportunity that we ended up getting relegated in that second season, because I believe in that second season that when we got relegated, I was there for a couple of games, but I ended up having to go back to Luton because I picked up an injury along the way. And when I picked up an injury, I was going back to Luton. I was living on my own. I was in a training ground by myself. I was doing everything on my own. Like, the manager didn't want me training with the force team. I didn't want me to be part of anything. And like you say, I went through probably more difficult times at Luton mentally than I did in majority of other things. And that's considering I had open heart surgeries and different things. But this one was kind of like an opinion was holding me back. A judgment of how I played was holding me back. Not the fact of me having an injury and different things. It was more personal than that was holding me back. But also I do look at different things and I see them as what they are. And I think after going to Southport twice, it gave me that little bit more of a, do you know what, I'm glad I got to see this level of football, because it gave me that little bit of a fire to think, not to speak badly about it, but it was a standard that I wanted to play higher than. It was a standard when I first started at Derby, I never thought I'd see myself in conference football. But I think that was more out of a self thing for me to kind of go, do you know what? I'm only human to say I wanted to play at the highest level, and every football I did. But I think when I look back at it now, I'm so thankful for Southport, because they gave me the opportunity to play football. And when they gave me 2 opportunities to do it, no matter who it was for, I wanted to go and do the best that I could. And I was glad I got to get given the opportunity there. But the assistant manager of Southport the first time is the one who became the manager of Southport at the time, Dino Maria, ended up becoming assistant manager at Newport County. So because you kind of leave the whole kind of persona behind you of thinking, I'm too good for this level and I shouldn't be in this level, you kind of go, I'm going to play football. And because I went and gave it me all, gave me an opportunity then to sign for Newport County when Luton wanted me to go.
And what a season the 16-17 season was for you personally. 20 games, all of them after January, after you signed. And in March of the season, Newport needed 7 wins out of 12 as they were 11 points adrift. Michael Flynn's men secured the last gasp goal. And who scored that goal?
I definitely did. That's why I'm still here.
And what a goal it was. It was crossed in, it was chested and it was volleyed in, and they managed to stay up. There were scenes at full time, and of course there was a pitch invasion that we've all come to expect in recent years. Talk to us through that game where the dressing room would have been in a bit of a tricky situation going into it. They needed these 3 points, and talk to us through the whole game.
Yeah, it was a crazy day in itself, because obviously the whole build up to the game was like months and months of so many games and heart on the line and literally blood, sweat and tears, if you want to call it, like for the cause of it. But it was more to the fact of when you get it to the last day of the season, it's a cup final. It is literally all or nothing. Like literally what people would call nowadays when they see documentaries, all or nothing. This was the actual meaning of all or nothing. If you win, you stay up. If you lose, you're relegated. And that is something that is a lot of pressure to take on. And that is something where the game was a 5:20 kickoff. I remember I woke up at like 8 o'clock that morning normally I'm somebody who loves to have a lay-in and loves to have a sleep, but obviously the nerves and the excitement of the day in itself was kind of like I was awake at 9 o'clock and then I'm trying to go back to sleep and I'm awake again. Like, it was more of just the most restless day. I wish it was a 12 o'clock kickoff where it's like you wake up and get it out of the way and get it done. But I think leading up to it, like, the day was just going as normal as you could be. You didn't really want to speak about it much, but I was on the phone to my dad back home and it was like, how are you looking forward to today and all that? And I was like, yeah, look, I can't wait. Like, it's going to be a good game. Look, we'll just see what happens. And you try and play it down. But I said to me dad, I was like, look, when I get to the stadium, I said, I'll call you. And he said, look, you've not called me this whole time leading up to this game. He said, every single game, you've not called me in the stadium. He said, don't do it today. He said, call me after the game. And I said, right. So obviously my dad passed on superstitions to me. But we ended up getting to the stadium. And again, it's that kind of anxious feeling. But all the time I was there, we were getting probably 2,000 fans in, probably 2,500 fans in. And then on this last day of the season, it was a sellout. We had 7,500 people there. And then you're walking out into the atmosphere, 7,500 people there. And it was kind of like it was a really good feeling because you could feel the fact of you had 7,500 people all there wanting good for you, wanting you to stay up. Like, there was no kind of bad atmosphere in the place. It was all cheers, celebrations, and willing you on, and you could just sense it. But the first half went perfect. Like, it couldn't have gone any better. Like, we were comfortable in defending. We were doing okay defensively. We went 1-0 up. Mickey Demetriou scored like the first goal. And everything was just perfectly fine. And then second half started. It started off perfectly fine, the exact same way. Everything started normal. And then, like, kind of like disaster struck, if you want to call it, where Mickey Demetriou, as a centre-back, made a tackle. The ball bounced off my shins as he made the tackle, went around our middle centre-back, and their striker ran in and scored. So it's like we played the perfect through pass for somebody, and they ended up running in and scoring. And in that moment, it was kind of like, uh-oh. But we were hearing from sidelines and other people, Hartlepool are only drawing, Hartlepool are losing, you are okay, you're still safe. So we didn't really think much of it. And then the last 10 minutes of the game, we see the substitution board go up and two of our strikers are coming on. And we hear all the fans, and you can feel like the tension. And you hear everybody, get the ball forward. And you're thinking, what do you need to get the ball forward for? And then we start hearing from the bench, Hartlepool are winning. We need to win. So in that time, it's like you're just getting every ball forward and the nerves are building, the kind of anxious feeling is building, and you're just thinking, we need this. Like, we can't have gone this far and done this good of a job to get it back to within our hands on the last day of the season. So it got to the 89th minute, and I already spoke to the manager, Michael Flynn and Wayne Hatswell, and it was Wayne Hatswell, the assistant manager, who said, go up front, because it was the week before against Carlisle. I ended up going up front, and just to cause confusion and disruption, maybe to win a flick on or win a header, but I went up front for that. So again, I was just thinking the same thing. I was like, look, let me go up front and maybe win a flick on and one of our strikers will score. But then the ball got played out wide to David Pipe, and he cut in on his left foot, crossed the ball in. Our striker flicked it, and as it just went up into the air, and I'm standing behind him in space, and I chested it, volleyed it, and it goes in bottom corner. And that feeling, that you almost see it in so many different things, where you see Aguero scoring a last-minute goal. You see, and I remember Robbie Brady for Ireland scoring a last-minute goal for Ireland against Italy in the European Championships. And those kind of moments that people will remember, that moment, I always used to think, I'd love to know what that feels like. And after everything that I faced at Luton, after everything that I faced through my career, I was like, this is my moment. And like I say, the celebration speaks for itself. It was just absolute chaos and flares going off everywhere. It was unbelievable.
The 17-18 season, you stayed at Newport County, 28 league games. The same manager finished 11th. Again, not too much in that season, but the following season of the 18-19 season was huge for yourself. An FA Cup run that's historic and 34 league games. I'll talk to you through the individual games, and if you wouldn't mind just going over them. So the first game in the FA Cup was a first-round tie up against Met Police. You came on and played about 38 minutes, and you won 2-0.
Yeah, that game in itself was... I always have said it over the past years. Those games were probably our hardest games because we were going in as the team that were the favourites. And I believe that we ended up, from that time of staying up on the last day of the season and being underdogs, we kind of thrived in being underdogs. We loved the fact of a bigger team coming down, we'll beat them. We're in a situation that people are writing us off for, we'll overcome it. So it was in those times that we were playing against the teams that were below us and we were expected to win. I think we struggled a little bit more because it was like the expectation was all on us now. So,
and then you played... Oh, sorry. Go on.
No, so like literally that game in itself was probably like one of the harder fixtures of that season because you're going out against a team that you know what that feeling is. When you're playing a team that are higher than you in the league and you are playing against a team that should be winning, it's always going to bring out the best in that lower opposition because they want to prove a point.
You played Wrexham the full 90 minutes in a 0-0 draw, and then you went again in a 4-0 win in the replay, but you didn't play.
Yeah, I ended up playing in like the first game again. They were the conference side, we were the league side, so again the underdogs. But again, there was history between Wrexham and Newport because Newport, to get into the league, they beat Wrexham in the playoff final. So with that little bit of a kind of Welsh derby feel to it, as well as the history between the two, and then as well as them being the lower opposition, everything was kind of set in stone, and it was a TV game, so everything was set in stone for them to cause the upset. So I think for us to come away with a 0-0 draw that night was a very, very good result. We could have played better, but I think to come away with a result, to have a replay, was probably like the best outcome that we could have asked for in that time. But then I didn't play in the second game due to, I think I rolled my ankle, or I might have had a slight knock leading into that game. So it wasn't something that I was willing to push or willing to go through. But the lads done the club proud that night and showed exactly why we were the team that we were and why we were the better side.
I've never spoken to anyone who's got further in the FA Cup than this. So what was it like then? Because obviously you played Leicester City in the following game. For the draws, when the draws are coming out, are you all sitting in a big room together?
Do you know what? We're not sitting in a big room together, but we're all in a group chat together. And when the draw's coming on, like everybody's like, "Oh, I wonder how we're going to get. Can't believe it's this. Oh, look at it!" Like everybody's watching it. But it's yeah, I think like that feeling of things it's an excitement because you feel as though you've earned it. Like you want to play against a Premier League side, you want to play against a big team, because when you're in the position that you're in and you're in League Two, it's not going to be very often you'll ever play against a Premier League side unless you have an incredible season, get a move to the Championship, and then you get a move from the Championship to the Premier League. Like these are all things that, yeah, we all dream of. But the FA Cup is kind of our competition to say, okay, now let's play against the best. Now let's put our club on the map. Let's put myself against the best players. And the FA Cup is sometimes the only time you're able to do that. So I always looked at it where when that draw does come out, you're sitting there by yourself thinking, come on, let's get a good team. Let's get Liverpool. Let's go to Anfield. Or let's get Liverpool down to Newport. And when we ended up getting Leicester and we got Leeds and different things, like when we got Leicester, it was eye-opening. It was kind of one of those where, but we had this feel-good factor that season where we knew Rodney Parade, our stadium, was a stadium that not many people like to come play. The grass and pitch wasn't always great, but the atmosphere was always electric. The team they were playing against were always rough and ready. Like we weren't a nice team to play against in all the best ways possible. And I just believe that in that season, no matter who came to Rodney Parade, whoever it was, we always knew we're going to give them a good game. If anything, we could beat this. And it was always that feeling we had going around the place.
When Marine played Tottenham in, was it 2020, when Dali Ali was playing up against plumbers and all sorts, This was a time, of course, of disruption, but there was also a time where Marine could have played at Tottenham. And there was always talk, the players would have loved to play at Tottenham rather than their ground. It's a great experience. But for the club, like yourself, like Newport, it's a huge thing to have a club like Leicester City come and play at your stadium. You played 4 minutes up against the Premier League side in a 2-1 win. Again, what was that like, that you've gone this far, but now you've beaten a Premier League standard team?
Yeah, like it was, again, I think in that moment of the minutes that I didn't play, I think it was more to the fact of, because when I was out due to certain little niggles and injuries, we had like a centre-back, the two centre-backs were playing really well. So you can't really grumble about not playing in those type of situations. I can be disappointed, but I was there as, again, go back to when I was 18, I'd done exactly what I had to do against Leicester. You come on for the last 5 minutes, we just scored a penalty, I'm coming on in front of the back four, and I'm there to head and kick a ball. It's not a position that I'm not used to or wasn't accustomed to, but I wanted to be there and be a good enough teammate to say, right, well, I'll help you through this. Like, whatever's needed of me, I'm ready. And I think that's the position I was in at that time, because the two centre-backs were playing well at the time. So whenever I was needed, I called upon. But then to be on the pitch on the final whistle when you've just beaten Leicester City, who a year or two previous to that win the Premier League, like, you're thinking to yourself, like, this is a big deal. Like, something can happen with this team this year, and you start to believe in yourself that we're doing something special here.
You were captain against Middlesbrough twice, because obviously it was a 1-1 draw first time round. You played 90 minutes. You were captain again in a 2-0 win. And of course, you played the 90 minutes. The Middlesbrough game was a weird one for you, because it was the first, well, not a weird one. It was a proud moment, actually, because obviously you were captain, right? 2 games out of 2. And what was that like then, to play all the minutes in the games and then go ahead and win and then face Manchester City in the next round?
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Like, the first game, we travelled all there, and like I was actually doing really well at the time, and I was loving playing, and like I got given the captaincy, and like everything was just going great. And when we were going to these places, I think we were a little bit more fearful because we were going to Middlesbrough. And now if Middlesbrough were coming to our place, I think we would have had a little bit more of a confidence about us. But even in that, we had a confidence within our team that no matter who we play, we can give anybody a good game. We can beat anybody. So when the game started and you go first half, it's 0-0 away at Middlesbrough, and you're thinking we're doing really well. And when they score, you're kind of a bit disheartened because it was against the run of play. It was a set play. And I thought we played really well in that game, and we had enough chances to win it on the day. And I think that was probably the more disappointing part, because I think a lot of people will look at the result who wasn't there and say, oh, well, Newport scraped it because they scored in the last minute of the game. But it was more to the fact that we got what we deserved in the last minute of the game. I think Middlesbrough would have been the lucky team to be coming away with a result that day. So even in that, like, again, it's like Newport have always been known to create stories and create these moments. And again, like a close friend, obviously now, still to this day, Matty Dolan, his story of that is he was a Middlesbrough youth team player, never got an opportunity to play for the first team, but was at Middlesbrough for so many years of his life, and now all of a sudden plays against Middlesbrough, scores in the 94th minute of added on time to get us to a replay against Middlesbrough to keep our dreams alive of the FA Cup. And once we got Middlesbrough back down to Rodney Parade, we knew we're going to win, because then when you're sitting around for that next round draw and you see we've got Manchester City next, if we win this one game, we play Manchester City. And that was unheard of. Like that, to be bringing down such a calibre of team, player, manager to Rodney Parade, it's kind of like, that's your dream of a footballer. Like when you say you want to play against Premier League teams, you want to play against some of the best players in the world.
And Pep didn't go easy on you, because he played Gabriel Jesus, Riyad Mahrez, Phil Foden, Leroy Sané, David Silva. An incredibly strong team. He was obviously quite scared of you.
Do you know what? We see it as a compliment to us, because I think it was a big compliment that he didn't want any cup upset. He didn't want any kind of like story behind it. He wanted to win, and he knew that if he didn't kind of come down with a strong enough side, that Newport had the capabilities of winning. And I think that was compliment to ourselves and testament to ourselves at that time. That you even look at the bench that he had with the likes of Kyle Walker, Raheem Sterling, Kevin De Bruyne. All people like that are on the bench. And you're thinking to yourself, right, they can make a substitution of taking off Phil Foden and bring on Kevin De Bruyne if they want. They can take off David Silva and put on Raheem Sterling if they like. And that obviously it's as a player, you're excited. Like, you're going into that game and you know that there's no pressure because you're not expected to win this. But my whole thing in that season, or any season that I played at Newport, was, well, what if? What if we beat Man City? What if we get that one result? What are people going to say if we get that one result that just people go, oh, hang on, we didn't expect this? Because and I've spoken to people, when we were we were the fifth team, I think, in Europe that season to keep Man City to a 0-0 draw. And you're talking about, I think there was AC Milan in there. There was, I think, Liverpool. There was, I think, potentially Chelsea in there. And then you've got Newport County. Like, that in itself is an achievement. But when you go in at half-time in a game like that and you're 0-0, you're looking at it then thinking, we can actually do something, and you start believing. And then you get the game to 2-1 in the 89th minute and you're thinking Newport can't do it. Surely they can't. But the difference of what we always done that season was we knew we could keep people's dreams alive. We knew we could keep the faith alive because we were just a team that were relentless. But when you're playing against such high-quality players and high-quality teams, you do need that little bit of luck that, unfortunately, on that night didn't go for us.
The league was just as extraordinary. 2,000 minutes, over 2,000 minutes played. And you won 3-5 on penalties, and you played both playoff first and second legs. And what a penalty shootout it was, as it was finished 3-5. Joe Day saved a penalty. What a save it was. Do you remember that shootout? The nerves, of course, at Wembley.
Yeah, I definitely remember that shootout. Like, when we played against Middlesbrough in that semi-final, not Middlesbrough, when we played against Mansfield in that semi-final, I remember, like, I had to do, like, obviously the coin toss to see what end we shoot at, to then who goes first or second. And I remember I just blagged me whole way through because I lost both tosses, but I ended up getting the Newport end. And we got to take a forced penalty because as the referee's tossing it, I said tails and he said heads, and he looked at me and I said, yeah, I said heads. And it was literally just one of them things that everything that season was going in our favour. We were just getting by, we were getting through, we were just getting things done. And when we were stepping up for that penalty shootout, I didn't have a doubt in anybody's mind. I didn't have a doubt in my mind that we weren't going to win, because it was just that type of season that everything that we done was just, we had the right squad for it all. And I always look back at that season with a small bit of regret, because I always believed that was the season we should have been promoted.
And obviously, Joe Day did save that penalty. It was a really good save. Of course, you do need those heroes in the shootouts, and he was the hero on the day. Had he not saved that penalty, how far down you were in the pecking order to take a penalty?
I think I was after Joe Day. I was that tired. I think I ended up, like, I was never one for taking penalties. Like, don't get me wrong, I would have stepped up and taken one, but I was never one for taking one at the time. Like, I think in that game, going into extra time and how my body was feeling, I was so far down the pecking order. I think I was, if I want to say, I was confident that my teammates were going to get it done within 5, that they didn't have to come anywhere looking for me.
Let's talk about that final, though, the EFL playoff final, and in front of Wembley. We're going to talk about the result after this. So Jamil Matt could have had a penalty, but Mark, you, of course, was played the ball and you were offside, and you shot and it just went past the wide post. So it was not a penalty as you were offside. And I think, because the commentators, when I was watching it back as well, I think in today's game that could have been a penalty, because it's regardless that you received the ball, because it was quite an obvious penalty. Could you talk us through that and what you were thinking at the time? Should that have been a penalty?
Yeah, I think everybody could see that it should have been a penalty. I think in any sort of level of football, I think regardless of VAR and different things, if your striker takes a touch away from the centre-back and gets his foot stood on and goes over, it's a penalty. And I think the unfortunate thing is that it fell to my feet, and I remember striking it and hitting the post but get given offside. And it was heartbreaking because I think even in that game, it was so tight. It was like one decision was going to change it. One chance was going to change it. There was always that kind of edgy feeling of there's going to be one opportunity for either team. But the difference was in that game, we had 3 or 4 opportunities to score, and they were just narrowly missed, given an offside. We didn't get given a penalty. So like there was always that half odd little small chance that, do you know what? It might just be one of those days. This isn't our day. And unfortunately, I had to pay the price for it. Obviously getting sent off at Wembley, which again, it does live with me and haunt me a little bit, because it is something where I don't believe it was a red card, because it's 2 yellow cards. I don't believe they would have warranted. I don't think the first one in any way warrants a yellow card, but I'd also have to take it on the chin and kind of be that person to say, look, these things happen. But the lads fought hard, and in my opinion, if they took it to penalties, I think we would have won. But again, you just almost have to look at it fate-wise. It just wasn't meant for us.
There was another appeal for a penalty. I thought it was a bit of a weaker call. And then Tranmere played a long ball, and you brought down Norwood, who was basically kind of through a goal. It was to the left-hand side of the goal. There's still another centre-back that could have come on a diagonal run. Obviously, you got a red card, and then obviously Norwood squares up to you. And I like the way that you kind of ignored him when he was up in your face. But was that intentional, though? Did you intend to bring him down? Because you said it wasn't a red card because of the 2 yellows. But you didn't really question the referee. Why did you not question him? And was it an intentional foul?
Do you know what? It wasn't an intentional foul, but it was very clever play by the striker. I think in that situation as a centre-back, you feel as though someone's got more pace than you, and you feel you're a bit vulnerable. I tried to put my arm out to stop him running around the side of me. But as my arm is around him trying to stop him running, he kind of holds my arm underneath his arm. And then as he kicks his leg back, goes down, I fall over, he falls over. It looks like I've pulled him down. But it was intentional to try and block his run and stop him running. But the whole issue of him going down and being down and making something of it, that was probably nothing. I just say it as he's seen an opportunity as a clever striker and took it. And you have to pay the price for that sometimes.
So when you got sent off then, obviously you conceded in the 119th minute, such a late thing to do in the game. What was it like to get sent off? Did you go to the changing rooms? Did you sit on the bench? Did you watch the rest of the game?
Yeah, I walked straight into the tunnel. There was a TV in the tunnel, and I just sat there watching the game. I got a chair and I just sat watching the rest of the game in the tunnel. And when I seen they scored in the 119th minute, I stormed straight into our changing room. I got a towel. I went into the little physio room and I sat on the beds and I just started crying, because I've never had that feeling before. Like, I used to put a lot of pressure on myself in football, and I used to always be the person where I thought, I'm putting the pressure on me to succeed, that if I do well, everybody does well. Like, I just had that kind of feel for myself. But in that moment, I felt as though I've let everybody down. Like, everything we've worked hard for, everything we've just done, I've let everyone down. And that feeling killed me from the moment they scored that goal. I just couldn't help but cry. And that was, it was heartbreaking for me.
And what was that like when everyone came back into the changing room? Because obviously you're still integrating with the players, and obviously you were the captain for that game.
When everybody came in, I still didn't sit in the changing room. I just sat with my head in a towel crying, because I couldn't believe that we just lost. I couldn't believe that I was sent off. I couldn't believe that I've just let everybody down. Like, there was so much feelings going on that I didn't have the words to speak to anybody. And in all fairness, they didn't have the words to speak to me. It was kind of like just an arm around the back of the head saying, don't worry about it. And I'm like, there was nothing that anybody could have said in that moment, from me to the players, or the players to me, that would have consoled anybody. It was, we just lost in a playoff final. That realistically, you get promoted. And for people who are playing in League Two, it's like, it is life changing. You get better wages, you get a better way of living. You can look after your family that little bit more. So like, there's so much more on it than it is just it's a cup final. We missed out. Oh well. Like, there's opportunity that comes of that. There's a better lifestyle that comes of that. So there was a lot that fell onto my shoulders that I felt at that time was, I'm at fault for all this.
Of course, we're on the thin edge of time now. So in the 1920 season, you played 21 games, 14th place. A huge season for you, a huge season for everyone. Obviously, it was coronavirus, but you decided to retire. How did that come about? Of course, it was due to the faulty heart. How did you decide to retire? Was it a long process? Was it a talk with family?
No, I decided to retire because it was all back to that situation when I was 16. I was having one operation for my life, and I was having the next operation. I was having one operation for my career, and the next operation was for my life. And it didn't take me long to make the decision of retiring, but it just didn't make retiring any easier. I knew I had to be done. I knew I had to retire, but I cried a lot. Like, I went and had the second routine heart scan during COVID and found out that my valve was leaking, and I got told leaking very badly. And in that time it was leaking very badly. I knew there and then that I had to retire, and I said it to myself. I said it to my family. My family flew over. But it was a decision that nobody was going to change my mind on. It was a decision that, as I say, from when I was 16, I already knew what I was going to do, but it just didn't make it any easier. Like, and I cried a hell of a lot because I felt as though there was a part of me missing that I'll never get back.
You have played with a lot of players throughout your time, and I was looking through a lot of them, and of course Ben White sticks out. You've played over 1,000 minutes with him, and now he's obviously in Arsenal and playing Champions League football. What is Ben White like as a player? Because we know he's quite young, but there's also been some times in the media, let's go back to the England thing, where he decided to not play or represent England because he thought he wasn't going to get enough minutes. From a fan's point of view, and I know a lot of people share this, it was a weird one for him to come out and say that, because why would you not want the opportunity to at least go and represent your country and have the opportunity? But obviously you played with him for a long time. So could you please just go ahead and tell us what his standards were like, what he was like as a person?
As a person and as a player, I would say he's one of the best. Like, I think as a person, he's a genuine, lovely, down-to-earth person, loves a joke, loves a laugh, will integrate into any changing room you put him involved in. And then as a player, I think his talents speak for himself. I think he came and learned a lot from Newport. I think he learned the rough and ready side of Newport. He learned a lot of the competitiveness from football. He learned a lot of the growing up side of football, being in a men's changing room and a men's environment. And he learned a lot from all of them things, I think, being at Newport. But, like, you could just see his qualities. Like, when he came to the club, you look at him and you just think he was very slight build, and he had an athletic build about him, but he looked not physically ready for League Two football. But when he'd play, his talents were amazing, but the physical side would start getting him. But then he started to tackle a lot harder. Then his positioning started getting better. Then his voice got a little bit better. So, like, you could just see he was just lapping up every little bit of learning, bit after bit after bit, and his talent would just speak for itself. And I think as a person, I couldn't speak any more highly of him. I think he's someone that is just a genuine person. So, like you say, if there's a decision behind what he's done towards his country and England, there'll be a reason for it. He's not just somebody who won't be patriotic about England, but also he is someone who thinks about what's best for him, what's best for his life, and what's the best decision for Ben White. And I think when somebody can have that control of themselves to be able to make such a decision, I think it's all about where he's happier and where he's more comfortable. And if you don't feel happy or comfortable in a place, no matter whether it's England or not, or whether it was going to represent your country or not, if you're not happy or comfortable, well, then why would you put yourself through that? And that's like saying that for anybody in anybody's life. If you're not happy or comfortable doing something, would you put yourself through it? Probably not.
You've obviously written a book, A Game of Two Hearts, and I was looking up on it, and it's a really interesting read. And obviously there's mentions of depression and anxiety, and I'm sure it goes through your whole life, as we've spoken about on this podcast. For anyone that's looking to buy your book, what would you tell them?
I would say, like, if anybody is looking to read about my life, it's literally me from start to finish. Like it is like from me growing up to how I came across the stories in between. But it's more about the fact of it's a book that anybody can relate to. It's not just, yes, there's a lot of football stories in it. I am a footballer, but it's a story about a life. Someone who's lived a life, who's gone through a lot of serious things and not so serious things, but still managed to come out the other side and still managed to try and keep a smile on his face and still manages to try and help people. Like, and that is life. And people, just because they see somebody as a footballer and they see somebody, oh, well, I can't relate to that. I've never played football. Like, it's not about having to play football. It's about the book being relatable to anybody's life. And I think when people can resonate with something about certain feelings that they felt, or like you say, anxieties, depressions, panic attacks, PTSDs, like all of these different things that we all experience daily, weekly, yearly, like it is something where, well, I'm just there telling my story and my life because I want to show people that regardless of me being a footballer, I'm still normal and human. I still have all these same things. It's just a matter of, okay, maybe I just had to go through something different to deal with things differently and to have a different perspective. But hopefully my perspective can maybe help somebody else's perspective that might be in the same position.
Let's talk about your FIFA card lastly. So, of course, you've been in the game many, many times. Your highest rated card was 68 for Derby County, FIFA 14. And your last was for Newport in FIFA 20, rated 61. Do you play FIFA, or EAFC as it's now known?
I used to play FIFA, yeah. Used to play it a lot.
And when you got into it, what was that feeling when you're now in the game?
Do you know what? It was more of a, like, it was surreal, but I think for when I've got like younger cousins and different things and other people in my family, like they kind of found it was a bit like crazy that I was in a FIFA game, I was in a game. So I think it was something where you kind of take it for what it is when you're playing FIFA, but when it's more of you see like what the joy it brings to your family and other people going, oh my God, you're on FIFA and oh, I'm gonna play with Newport, I'm gonna put you up front. And it was always funny. It was like fun and games. Like,
so let's go through it then. Your pace. What would your pace be on EAFC?
What is it out of 100?
Yeah, 99 is the max.
I'd give myself a pace of 40.
And what would that be?
Because I was never slow, but I was never really rapid. But I'd never put myself in a position to kind of be outpaced. But I never really backed myself as a quick player because I've played against a lot of quick players and I never kept up. But I was always someone that I don't think I lacked in a lot of pace, like, and was very, very slow. But I'd give myself middle of the ground for that.
Surely that Newport goal has to get this one boosted up a bit. You're shooting. What would that be?
99.
No, it will have to be 99.
No, I think shooting, I'd give it about a 60.
That is boosted up because of that goal for sure. Passing, what would that be? There's a lot of things in a lot of newspapers, a lot of articles, and a lot of games that I've seen that you like to go with a long pass.
Yeah, do you know what? I think passing is something where depends on what team you play in, depends what style you play. But passing, I would give myself 30 or 40. Like, it was never really something I was ever massively into to think I want to be this passing type centre back. But if I needed to pass, I could. But I just never really, I never really paid attention to it.
Ball playing centre backs are really common in today's game. John Stones being a really good one at doing it, and Kwanzaa for Liverpool as well. Dribbling, what would that be?
Dribbling, I'd give myself 30. Like, I would say, like, I was more of a person that I'd take a ball into my feet and I'd give it to the midfielder who can go and dribble and play. Like, I just see myself as I was brought up that way, defenders defend. And if I had a midfielder in front of me who could play, why should I try?
These two last ones have to boost your card up too much. Defending, what would that be?
I'd give my, like, and if I'm going to be honest with myself, I'd give my defending 70 or 80.
Let's say 80. We'll put 80.
Yeah, because I believe that I was someone, I genuinely loved defending. Like, I loved blocking a ball. I loved winning headers. I loved making tackles. And I think if anybody is to speak of me, if they've played with me or played against me, they would probably say the same thing. Like I was someone who would loved like the rougher side of the game.
And last but certainly not least, physicality. What would that be for your EAFC 25 rating?
85. I'd give
Nice.
myself that, like, because I never looked like the strongest of players. I never looked like the strongest of builds, but I was competitive and strong in what I'd done, so I'd give myself that.
Mark, what an absolute blast it's been. It's been over an hour and 40 minutes talking to you about your whole career, the longest interview I've ever done, and certainly one of the best, if not the best, talking about EFL playoff finals, playing against Manchester City, Leicester City, and so much more. Mark, thank you very much, and all the best for the future.
No problem at all. Thanks very much.
Perfect, Mark. Thank you very much. So,
Legend.